next. What's up, everyone? I'm here with Gino Ciavone. He's a 12-year fitness coach, and he has a very unique approach to fitness, and we're going to kind of dive into that. And by the way, this is episode number 5 of the To Be Determined podcast. So welcome, Gino. I'm glad to have you here.
It feels like I see you more than my wife sometimes, to be honest.
Once a day for an hour. How much more do you need?
Yeah, right.
Nice, man. Well, let's kind of dive right into this. Let's get into who you are and what got you into the fitness, and kind of go into that. So,
of course.
Who are you? Who are you in a high school? Who are you?
Oh, man.
Who are your friends? And like what?
You drop in the big "Who are you?" question.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, that's something that's going to give me some anxiety here in a second. But who am I? Oh, basically, I'm a men's fitness and personal development coach. Mm-hmm. You know, I spent about 12 years working with mainly entrepreneurial men, mm-hmm. right? And what I do, I would say the sexy side of it's fitness. I would say the back end of it's more coaching into personal development, because, you know, most of the time when people come into fitness for, you know, whatever reason they make up inside of their head, it's usually never the thing that they actually need to change about themselves. So that's something we find out over time. So, you know, like I said, the front end is fitness, but the back end is kind of coaching. And, you know, through those 12 years, it's really unique to be able to work with a wide variety of individuals and figure out what that is for each person. So
yeah, and since we've been working together, right, for the last 3 months, or 3 weeks, right? It's only been 3 weeks. Just to give you a little bit of background on what's changed on my life in 3 weeks is first off, when we got into it, you're like, come and do this. And why I want to talk about the unique approach is because most fitness trainers, they say, okay, here's your program and fuck off. Like, you know, like go do your thing. Yep. No, but with you, it's been, you helped us with finding the exact amount of food that we needed to eat, but not like, we're not counting anything. You said, eat this amount, and then we weigh it, and that's it. And then
I hate numbers.
I have 3 meals a day. I'm always full. I'm actually like not hungry anymore, and then the food I eat is all 100% organic, natural. I feel a lot better. And I'm also losing weight, like not rapidly, but like slowly. And I'm not necessarily losing it to where I'm losing the energy and everything. I'm just losing the like the body fat. Yeah,
and I think you're kind of touching on it too a little bit. It's like you say unique approach to fitness, and I think one of the things we could touch on is nutrition, which is, you know, it's not necessarily like just eating things that are clean and what you get from food. It's what does food take away from you, right? Because that's an element that people dismiss a lot, right? Yeah. Like, so when I say to eat things like all organic and you remove all that stuff from your diet, I mean, there's a lot of chemicals that are inside there that react with your body. So, I mean, that's usually the first thing I look at with people. So let's take out the things that are first poisoning you, right? Because, you know, that stuff needs to go first, right? And then we'll start adding things in moderation and kind of build you out a plan that makes you feel like you're getting like something that tastes good, but also is good for you.
Yeah. What about talking about things that you're cutting out, like poisoning? What are your thoughts on vegetables?
It's actually funny. So I follow Paul Saladino. I mean, he's real big in the industry when it comes to I don't know, an intense opinion on food, right? Mm-hmm. And he sold me, man. He sold me on the vegetable thing. And I'll tell you, ever since I've removed vegetables from my diet, I personally felt better. Everybody who I've done it with has felt better. And the thing that sold me about it was this, you know, humans and animals in nature, they have ways of protecting themselves, right? They could run, they got teeth, they got claws. Yeah. How does a plant protect itself? It's in the fucking ground, you know? Yeah. It's like it's planted there, it can't move, right? So it's got to create its own chemicals. So when you eat it, it poisons you. Yeah. You know, all these phytodefensive chemicals that get inside your body, they react with your hormones and they tank them down. And, you know, a lot of people wonder why they have autoimmune issues to begin with. I mean, it usually stems from some of the things that they're eating, right? So tracing stuff back, you'll find that some of these things are actually found in high densities inside of vegetables. Mm-hmm. So things like oxalates and isothianines. I don't want to get into the science.
Yeah. Tell the story about your wife, how she had the something that you cured by basically just going meat or going organic.
Well, she had a lot of problems, man.
Well, you said she had like a dot or something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, so skin irritation, anything that pops up on your skin, right? Mm-hmm. Your skin is an organ. It's the biggest organ in your body. People don't realize that. I think it's just like the external part of your body. It's an organ, right? Yeah. So when you're having things that pop up consistently on your skin, you know, it's an indication that something's wrong, right? Yeah. And your skin's trying to tell you, like, yo, dude, there's something up with you. You got this shit all over your face, you know? It's stuff popping up on your skin in places it shouldn't be popping up. So whenever something's popping up on the skin, we need to think about, well, what's the thing that contributes to that mostly, which is your nutrition. I mean, whenever you eat something, it circulates through the whole body, and as it continues to engage with the organs that it makes contact with, especially your skin, you get bad reactions. Yeah. You know, so like you want to make sure that first and foremost, if you are having skin reactions, you take a hard look at what you're eating, right? That'll be number one. And then you look at things like, hygiene products and things you put on your skin and stuff like that. And I'm sure we'll go into stuff like that too as well. But
So not just look at the stuff you're putting into your body, but also that you're putting on your body.
yes. And she had this red dot on her nose for like 10 years. And we made some changes to her diet. And we also started using some more, I would say, holistic approaches to skin products. And it completely disappeared. I mean, like it's something that, it could have even been portrayed as skin cancer. Who knows, right? But like it disappeared, right? Yeah. And it's something she had for over 10 years. So it's fascinating that when you start to change the body and heal it from within by changing the nutrition that you give it, like how many benefits it can actually have. So
yeah, and this is a big thing that with what kind of the difference of approach from what I'm getting from you versus getting from any other coach is we're like before I hired you as a coach, right? I always thought like, oh, I don't need to hire a coach. What the fuck's a coach gonna do? I can get all of my information off YouTube.
This is a sell point, by the way. Information's free, so why don't you look the way you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what that's what you tell me every time. But I mean, that's the hard part about coaching, right? Is because everybody thinks like, what the fuck do I need a coach for? I can find the information on YouTube. And so how do you go about finding the right coach, and then also finding like the coach that, because I told you the experience before, like we were gonna have a fitness coach, and then a bunch of stuff didn't end up working out. But then, so how do you find a coach for the level that you're at?
That is a very difficult question, because what are the selection criteria exactly? Well, it's hard to know when you don't know anything about fitness to begin with, right? Yeah. So what are you looking for? And I think before you can even get in anything like super psychological, you need to ask yourself first, like, does this coach look the way that I want to look? Yeah. Right? And if they don't, well, then maybe you should not fucking use that person, right? Well, you could notch them out right away, right? Yeah. And then you need to ask yourself, I think in the coaching world, it is very important to have experience under your belt. I don't care how much you know from a textbook, right? If you haven't applied it to the human animal, and if you haven't worked with people in person in a dynamic way and been able to change things as you go with each person, it can be very difficult, right? So to find and work with the right person. So you need to make sure that the person has experience and they look the way that you want to look, okay? And then lastly, I think you need to sit down and have a conversation with the person, right? Yeah. And I think the conversation needs to take place in an organic way. It's like, can you guys touch base? Because most of what you are going to be doing is going to be conversing. Yeah. And if you can't have conversations that are interesting, well, it's going to be a boring couple hours, throughout the week, right? Yeah. So, those would pretty much be the three things that I would use as criteria.
So would you look at like what they have as far as like credentials from school? Like
No. And I'll tell you why, because it's a screening tool. I mean, let's be honest. You can have a degree in something, and fitness is a unique thing because in some states, like in Michigan where I came from, you don't need to have a certification or anything to start working as a trainer, right? Like you can just start going in there. If you got some muscles in a bicep vein, they're like, all right, this guy's hired, Yeah. But you don't need to have any type of experience per se when it comes to credentials, with it being the only thing that you look at, right? Like you that shouldn't be the only thing you consider, right? Yeah. Is it important? Sometimes it is, because like you don't just want to work with somebody who knows absolutely nothing, right? Yeah. But I don't think it's a good indicator of success with them as a coach. I think results are, right? Like how many people have you worked with? How many years have you been doing this, right? I think those are factors that you need to consider first, because I could have you train with someone who's a professional bodybuilder that's been doing it for 15 years and they've never trained a single person once, but I bet you if you started working with them, you'd be a lot better off than someone who's got, a 4-year degree, So application's a big thing.
Yeah. So you think if you're looking for, like if you're just starting out, would you go for somebody with a good application, a good resume, or somebody that has the results and they have like none of the resume?
That's a very good question.
None of the pieces of paper.
So I think I would go into one of those other elements, which is I would have a conversation with the person. Are they competent? Right? Like if you talk to the person, they make eye contact. We talk about this a lot, right? Like, do they have a presence to them? Do they seem confident in their abilities? Yeah. Right? Like when you're working out with them, do they bring in a clipboard with them? Yeah. Right? I mean, that's a sign you should probably leave. You know what I'm saying? Like they made this in advance. They don't even know you, right? Yeah. So, and also a coach's ability to pivot. So like when you come up to them and you say like, hey, I got this, and this wrong. How do they deal with that? Yeah. Right. Like, do they get intimidated by it? Or they say, oh, well, I don't really know how to work with that. Yeah. Right. Like, cause nobody's going to be a perfect subject. Yeah. Right. Nobody's going to say, hey, I got no ailments at all. I'm all set. Yeah. Most of the time people are going to, I got a bum knee. I got some back pain. I got a tweak in my neck or something. Yeah. And how a coach approaches that is very important. So I think having a conversation around like the things that you have problems with and issues with needs to take place. And usually a coach will screen you for those things. Yeah. And I do want to elaborate on one thing real quick. A trainer and a coach are two different things, right? A trainer teaches you exercise. A coach is someone who basically works with you to facilitate some sort of change, and they'll go through a screening process with you, right? And when that screening process takes place, you'll immediately know, man, this person asked me questions I didn't even think about before, right? Which means that they're covering a wide base, which means they have a lot of knowledge and application and experience behind this. So that would be another thing I would look for.
Yeah, so let's stay on that topic, like the difference between a trainer and a coach. So say that again, a coach is a what?
A coach helps facilitate change because change takes place on multiple levels, right? It's not just the way your body looks, but it's also the way that you think, your emotional state. I mean, these are things that are really hard to explain in small words because it's more of something that's experiential, right? Like I always give people the analogy of like a football coach, right? Like a football coach, you think about like all the movies, like when the team's losing and they come into the locker room and he's like, what the hell's going on, guys? And then he gives them this long motivational speech, and it has nothing to do with football.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with football. But he somehow changes their spirit, their emotional state, and then they go out there and win, right? Yeah. So that would be the difference, right?
And a trainer would be just someone supporting you. Like
they just give you exercises. Here, do this many times. They count your reps, right? But I think you need to start off. I mean, coaches are across every industry. Even in your industry, you could coach people, right? Yeah. But I think when you're working with someone in regards to your body and fitness, I think the first piece of advice I would give you is I wouldn't go cheap.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go cheap.
Well, that's the hard part too, is because this is why I was thinking sometimes you need that online, like those online product courses to go through those for a little bit, because then you get to a certain level. Because me 4 years ago, if I hadn't done any type of fitness workout or anything like that, I couldn't have came up to you and said, hey, hire me. Yeah. Because I would have been like, first off, in my own mind, I couldn't have justified it. I couldn't have talked myself into it because I don't know anything about to me, it would have been, I'm just spending this money. Well, with now that I know you, I should have done that. But the person who I was, I couldn't have done that.
Yeah, well, you didn't know what to judge based on.
Yeah, and I also didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't even know how to do a deadlift and none of this stuff. So I think you have to also develop. Like, what's the saying? When the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes.
Because as you develop and grow, you have to have new coaches, not necessarily new coaches, but new approaches to what you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
So trying to find the right person for the right level of wherever you're at.
Yeah, the right job, right?
Yeah. And what do we always talk about where you say you find the people that are on the same path?
So the same race at the same pace?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So you need to find the right people, because look, I mean, when you work with a trainer, like when people are inexperienced, they'll talk about exercise, right? And you got to understand, these people don't give a shit about exercise.
What do you mean they'll talk about exercise?
Like I'm saying, when they're working with a client, right? They'll talk to the client strictly about exercise all the time. Client doesn't give a shit about exercise. Otherwise, they'd be a trainer, right? Like they care about other things. Like talk to them and communicate on a different level, right? Yeah. I mean, make some connections. You talk about this in sales industries too, right? Like how do you build rapport? How do you connect with someone? Yeah. They don't buy your shit, right? But even when you're with that person in person every single day, it's like part of your job as a coach, right, is to continuously build a bond with someone so you can help them on a greater level, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the conversations need to extend beyond that.
Yeah, well, I guess speaking on that topic is when we're in the gym, we're never like, do we ever talk about fitness? We only talk about like something's hurting and you're like, oh, do this or stretch this out, but you're just, hey, do these. And then I just do,
Yeah, that's easy stuff.
It also takes off, we were talking about this morning, it also takes off that, takes off the mental, like I don't use that part of my mental brain to like, what do I need to work out today? What do I need to eat? What do I need to do this? I'll outsource that to you as a coach and said, hey, you tell me what I do, and then I just do that.
Yeah, it frees up your headspace. You don't need to be thinking about this stuff.
Literally, I don't even count reps. You just tell me, however many more. So I feel that's also another thing too. Now I'm not like trying to study like how much calories do I need to eat, what's the good food, because I don't care. I just want to look good and feel good.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think that's another reason why to hire a coach is because you can outsource that information, that part of your life. You just do the stuff that he tells you to do and leave.
So you're basically time collapsing, right? So I tell people all the time, like, you want to learn this stuff, go ahead, right? I mean, it's working with the human body is one of the most complicated things you can do, right? Because it doesn't care what you do; it'll figure stuff out. That's why people can neglect themselves and eat like garbage, as we talk about, and somehow your body figures out a way to deal with the shit that you put in it.
Still operate.
Yeah, it still operates. I mean, your brain can do 6 trillion things in a second. You think it really cares what you're doing in this 1 second? Like, I mean, it's doing things that you can't even fathom right now, right?
Yeah.
So like you need to learn to operate and work with the body instead of against it. And I think working with a coach who has more experience and knowledge around that can really help bridge the gap for you with that.
Yeah. And then how long when you're working with a coach, what's the ideal time frame? Let's say how long do you work with a coach before you say, okay, this coach doesn't know what he's talking about?
Yes.
Or like how long do you,
That's a good point.
how long do you say like, okay, I'm stuck with you?
So I think, first of all, the coach themselves should tell you the timeline, right? I think they should tell you, hey, we're going to work together for this amount of timeline, and here's what you can expect within that time. Now, everybody's results are variable, but you need to, if you have enough experience, you should generally know what you can do in that certain amount of time, right? As long as people comply, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that you need to always give people a timeline because people like to find end timelines. Like when we talk together, I say, let's focus on 12 weeks at a time, right? A 12-week block, about 3 months, in my opinion, I think is probably the best timeline to start with, right?
Yeah.
Anything less than that, I think you're wasting your time. Like, what are you trying to do? A Jenny Craig 8-week fucking diet? Lose some, lose some water weight or something.
Yeah.
Gain it all back because you still have shitty dietary habits.
Yeah.
It's like we're trying to create long-term sustainable success, and the only way that you can really do that is with time, right? Like you need to do things in moderation. But at the same time, you need to know like what angles you should be attacking versus which ones you shouldn't. And the timeline isn't something you want to mess with.
Yeah.
Right. You want to try to attack other people's poor lifestyle habits first. So,
Yeah.
and that takes a long time usually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we were talking a little while ago, you don't see the day one or week one results until at least 30 days in. So I feel like at 30 days, that gives you a timeline. Okay, is this actually, even it's not, you do the 12 weeks. But then even at 30 days, if you're doing what that coach is telling you to do, you should be able to see some sort of results, right?
Absolutely. And I think the results can vary because I do two different things. I'll do quantitative and I'll do qualitative metrics, right? And quantitative numbers like you get on a scale, your waist measurements. I think those are the least important ones, but they're the most important for the client for some reason because they like to see some change with the number, right? But the qualitative metrics is how you feel, right? Like, how do you feel about everything?
Yeah.
Like your energy levels, your experience of life every day, right? Like what else has changed about your mental state? What else has been positively affected as a result of you doing this, right? So the qualitative metrics are arguably, in my opinion, always the most important because it's kind of like we talk about even in business, right? Like you can make a bunch of money, but if you hate your fucking life every single day, it doesn't really matter, right? So like qualitative metrics, I think, are highly neglected sometimes. And the way that you can keep track of the qualitative metrics is usually with pictures.
Yeah.
So like
that's the only thing I do. The only thing I do is qualitative. Is like how I'm looking in my pictures, and then also how I feel. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if I weigh 10 pounds less. If I still look bloated,
yes,
then it don't matter. Like that's what I'm trying to do is look good and feel good. So I think to me that's the most important thing is like how do you feel more than even looking good? It's feeling good because even if you don't look like say you're a little overweight, but if you feel good. Then you're gonna be, and then you want to look good. You're gonna at least have the motivation. But if you feel like shit, you're gonna keep
you're gonna keep dousing yourself in it.
Keep eating like shit.
You feel terrible anyway.
Yeah.
You might as well feel better with the food you eat, right?
Yeah, and that's what. So the interesting thing about the food we've been eating, it's 100% clean. I've been eating 100% clean, organic food, everything that we've talked about. And I love food. I'll eat everything, but lately. I haven't been craving food because I'm always full, and I always have like the little candy bar. Like it's not a candy bar, but it's like a healthy thing, And I'm always full. My sweet tooth is always, and I'm eating a lot of fruit, so my sweet tooth is always like gone before I'd have chocolate. Like I could never get enough, And like crackers, I'd eat a whole box of those like wheat thin things, by myself in one setting, And now I'll have just my one plate of food that's like, rice and meat and some sauce and whatnot. And I'm full, and I'm full, and I'm not craving, which is weird.
That's called satiation. So, the problem is people's hormones when they go all over the place like that. And they get manipulated with the fact that they go through periods of time where they don't eat for a long time, then they eat something really crappy for themselves. They'll spike all these hormones in the body, and they'll change and they'll alter them, right? Yeah. And when you change and alter these hormones, they could do things like increase your hunger, right? And increase your craving for sugar, right? Yeah. Because when your blood sugar levels drop and they change so dramatically like that, you need to restore and replenish them. Yeah. But also people seek happiness through food, right? Because maybe they're not finding it in something else they're doing. Now, training can offset that. Like when you work out, you create happy hormones, right? So we take care of that with the training, and then the other hormones we take care of with the diet. So, doing those two things in conjunction together, I mean, it changes everything.
Let's talk a little about your unique approach to fitness. Like normally when you go to the fitness or the gym, you're trying to lift as heavy as you can, right? Or that's what people tell you. Like always try to go for the heavier reps, more sets.
Of course.
Now, what do we do?
Yeah, the bro science ones. The ones that are trying to lift as fast as they can so they can rush home and kiss their father on the lips or something. Yeah.
Or their little brother.
Absolutely terrible. So, I mean, look, you need to understand there's a difference between training muscles and training movements, right? Like, I've been 160 pounds. I've been 260 pounds, pure muscle. And the way that I got there was not by lifting extraordinarily heavy weight, right? It was by squeezing the weight. I mean, because I can move my arm and bend it like this, or I can flex my bicep, right? And that's entirely different with the way it loads onto the body. And if your goal is to change the way that you look, you need to learn how to train a movement, right? You need to learn to train a muscle, not a movement. Okay, you're not training this, you're training this, like a squeeze, a slow, controlled squeeze.
Yeah.
Okay? And it always throws people off because when I hand them things like 5-pound dumbbells or something, and they're like, the hell is this? What am I going to do with this? Throw this across the gym, But when I hand them that, it always throws people off because they're expecting that, okay, this is going to be easy, right? But then when you change the way someone does something and the way they leverage something.
Literally the direction of
your hand. We did it with you with the 10-pounders, and you're like sore for like a week and a half. Yeah. So, I mean, it's about learning how to control the body from different angles, right? And when you can apply the stress in the right way, it's like you hit the bullseye every single time. It's like, I don't know about you, but like if I go to the gym, I want to hit the bullseye. Like I don't want to be wondering if what I'm doing is working or not. I want to know it's working. Yeah. And the one indication you can do when you know that it's working is, can you feel it?
Yeah.
Can you feel the muscle that you're using?
Yeah.
And the easiest analogy is like, if you're moving a couch, is it easier for 4 people to move a couch or 2? It's obviously easier for 4 people to move a couch, right? It doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist, right? But the problem is your brain wants to make things easy for you, right? So when you're trying to just use a bicep and just use a forearm with a curl, okay, that's only using 2 people to move the couch, right? But most people do the swing and bro bicep curls to try to throw the weight up, and they're just focusing on having like 4 or plus muscles using it to leverage the movement, right? So your brain is always going to default to what's easier, right? You need to learn to override that. You're trying to focus on a few muscles, not a bunch of them. Yeah. Right? And this is what isolation training is.
Yeah. So is that what we're doing is isolation training?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because the difference normally, I'd be trying to curl 45s, right? And I'd feel a little bit sore after I'm done. And now I'm curling. What are we doing? 10s or 15s?
Yeah.
And we're adjusting the position of the weight. And I like after our workouts, all the time. I don't. The difference is another thing too. I don't sweat like crazy. I do sweat a little bit, but I don't sweat like crazy. But I feel like crazy sore.
Poor indication.
Yeah, well,
poor indication of a good workout.
Well, I mean, if you look at all the movies, it's not.
Yeah, right. That's what they want you to believe.
Yeah. So that's what before I'd be all sweating, I'd be drenched, but I wouldn't be like just my whole body would be kind of tired, But now it's just like when we do arms, literally it's just my arms that are sore, or arms and abs, Or when we do legs, it's literally my fucking legs that's just
They're
dead.
burning.
Yeah.
Right? And you're never out of breath.
Yeah.
You're never panting for air. You're never throwing up, right? These are all myths, right? Oh, the harder you go, the better. It's like, no, intensity in the wrong direction is a bad thing, right? Like, you don't need to be running uphill backwards, I mean, it's not going to help you, okay? But, the things that I like to keep things simple, right? And one of the things I talk to you about a lot is like simplicity scales. It scales in business and it scales with your health. You want to keep things simple because when you keep things simple, you make them repeatable. And when you repeat them, you have consistency, right? And when consistency creates the results for you.
Dude, that is the unique approach right there. The simplicity approach is very unique because most people, especially most coaches, they only know a little bit of information, right? So they try to make that sound very complicated. So if you're trying to go into that thing, they make it sound because that's all they know. So they know this little bit of information. So they try to make it sound like, oh, you need me because the little bit of information that they know is very complicated versus if you just do the very simple.
Simple and effective. Simple and effective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people will try to overcomplicate things because they're trying to be flashy, right? Yeah. Oh, look what I know. I could do. I can attach 12 different bands to this machine while we're doing it with one arm or something. It's like, why are you doing that shit? First of all, it takes an hour and a half to set up. And secondarily, it's like it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Well, that's like people whenever I see these girls or people at the gym, they're doing these like random weird exercises. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, there's
Reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, like
they know better than the people before them.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, but like you've probably seen this too. Like girls try to do weird exercises, and you're like, dude, just do a squat, you know, or just do like
chill out there.
Yeah, or just do some like dumbbells, whatever.
You know, I mean, some people like to be expressive with exercise and like to say, oh, you know, like play around with it a little bit, right? You know,
then they sell that.
That's one thing, but some people try to sell it as like, oh, this way is better.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Can you prove it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then how let's get into like the kind of the how money's made in the fitness industry and the business side of it. So is it like that's what I was saying? Like the more people that the less they know, the more complicated they try to make it sound.
Absolutely.
So is the fitness industry very complicated? Is it very saturated? Like what's money like in the fitness industry?
What's interesting about the fitness industry is it's only like about 40 to 50 years old, right? And I mean, from profitability standpoint, I mean, people have always done something physical to some degree, right? But the industry itself, from a monetary standpoint, it's only about like 40 to 50 years old, right? Like commercial gyms weren't a massive thing. People weren't making money from them. They weren't very ubiquitous. They were very scarce.
Yeah.
So the industry itself has grown a lot, especially since social media has like came out. I mean, because now everybody, you know, could take their shirt off on camera and they're like, oh shit, I want to look like that, right? Yeah. So now like supplement companies keep coming up and, you know, like all these different, do you want to ride a magnetic bike that sticks on the wall and, you know, has a a camera that you could watch a live audience with? It's just, it's the rate at which shit's going is like, it's very interesting, right? And the fitness industry as a whole, is it profitable? Of course it is, because it's such a young industry. And also, fitness is a renewable resource, right? It's kind of like when you go out to eat, right? You know, you go out to eat because you're hungry, right? Your hunger goes away after you eat, but the next day you're hungry again, right? Yeah. So it's renewable, right? So people's fitness is always renewable because there is no end game. There's no finishing fitness. You can continuously improve. And some people need to improve by getting themselves out of the hole. Like, I need to stop being fat, you know, for lesser terms, you know? So it is very profitable. Now, where you want to position yourself is important too, obviously, because there's certain markets that I believe are probably more profitable than others. I mean, look at the weight loss industry. I mean, the medical industry attacks those people all the time. You know, it's very profitable. Look at how much money they make off them. Yeah. You know, but fitness itself, I mean, when it comes to things like gyms, for instance, like a membership-based gym doesn't make money, right? $40 for a gym membership. That's why all these things like Powerhouse and World's Gym, all these things are closing down, right? Because they just can't make the money, right? They need, 10,000 members to break even on some of their rents because these commercial complexes are big,
expensive.
They're expensive, right? Yeah. So like one thing that I noticed that was different in Michigan than here is there is a lot more fitness boutique centers in Michigan. Like, and what I mean by that is they're strictly for personal training. It's very heavy out there. I think it's because it's so cold outside. People really don't do anything active. So like they need to find a way to get in shape. Those facilities are profitable, but not as profitable as they could be because you're paying one trainer to do one service. So one person's paying for one service. Unless you're charging high ticket prices as a business, you're probably not going to make that much money. Your payroll's through the roof. Yeah. Right. So that model in itself is more profitable than in a gym. It's not the most ideal. A one-to-many model, like, you got Barry's Boot Camp and you got F45 and you got the Orange Theory Fitnesses. And I mean, even, whatever that like stupid dance one is, Zumba or something. Step aerobics or something, like those are very profitable. Why? Because you got one person training 30 people at a time.
Yeah. Is that all it is? Is this one person in there? They kind of.
I mean, it depends on the setting. Like a Barry's Boot Camp, or like even like a cycle studio, like Peloton or something, or Soul Cycle. They have one person up there, and they got like 40 people on bikes, right? Yeah. All those people are paying, Yeah. Now, it's finding that fine line, and Alex Hormozy is real big in the industry. We talk about him and stuff like that. He really kind of perfected a financial model to basically take one like single gym that's like 2,500 square feet. You can make $1 million a year profit off of one of those gyms. Yeah. Like a single 2,500 square foot location, which what's your rent? Max $8,000 if you're in a really expensive area. Yeah. So it could be very profitable in that aspect of it, but like you need to learn to layer your services, right? Like, so you need like a high ticket program that's basically like 1 to a few, which is, they call it semi-privates, right? And then you could do small group, which is like, 16 to 20 people. And then you could sell them vertical revenue opportunities inside the business. Like for instance, you'd be like, hey, you guys need supplements, you need merchandise, all those things that you can also add as subscription-based services on top of their membership or whatever they're paying for their sessions. So the industry itself is very profitable. for in-person business, if you know what you're doing the right way. Now, online, well, everything can be profitable online, right? Like you have an infinite market, essentially. Yeah. But the coach I used to work with for online, he made a very compelling point to me, and this is what I think is more important than if you're in person or if you're online, is if you're talking to everybody, then you're talking to nobody, So if you don't narrow down who it is that you help and what problem that you solve and like what unique solution that you apply to, you're not going to make money because you're saying, hey, I'll work with anybody.
Yeah.
Who the hell wants to work with that guy?
Yeah,
No Nobody.
Yeah.
I want to work with the guy that's like, dude, I only work with male entrepreneurs that want to build 10 to 15 pounds of muscle in the next 12 weeks. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, it's very narrow. It's very neat. And you can get even more niche down than that. But essentially, if you're niche down, it can be very profitable because you become a specialist then. And think about even like, medicine. Do you want to go to a family doctor family doctors don't get paid that much, right? Think about a specialist though. They're always more expensive for the client. They also make more money, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be a specialist in this industry.
And they also give you the client a better experience.
Oh yeah.
Too.
Hey, you solve more of their problems.
When I went to a dentist to get my tooth, one of my teeth fixed, it was like, oh, you'll need all this stuff, and she tried to do everything, but gave me a really bad experience. But then I went to a specialist that just specialized in root canals. It was an amazing experience. Like it cost a lot, but it was a really good experience.
But that's why they could charge that, right?
Yeah.
And that's also why the experience is better too, because it's it's kind of consolidated to that one individual service that they provide, and they just max it out in every way.
Yeah.
And they find every single problem around that one problem, right? So like all the little mini problems, and and then people come in and be like, oh, well, I'll do this for you. Oh, hey, well, you're going to travel? Well, I'm going to help you with a travel workout plan, right? I'm going to also look at all the restaurants in the area wherever you travel to. Just let me know, and I'm going to tell you what exactly you can eat.
Where to go. Yeah, that's another thing you do as well, right? So your clientele is like what you said, the male entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Male entrepreneurs that want to put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle. And then you do the little things like if I'm traveling, hey, go to these places or take these supplements. So that's the great thing about having a coach right there is just the outsourcing of
the problems.
I feel like that portion of my life is like taken care of now. Like, okay, as long as I do what he tells me to do, I'm good. And I don't have to always open my app. Okay, what should I do today? And then track everything. And then now I got to make sure I remember to eat this stuff. I just say, hey, Gino, I'm going here. What to do?
Yeah.
And you say, hey, do this and this and this.
Because money's a cheap resource, but time isn't.
Yeah.
Right. So like the moment that your ego, is more valuable to you than your money.
Yeah.
Right. Is the time you're going to fail. Right. Like you need to like dismiss that and just be like, look, take this fucking money. Right. Help me with this service. Free up my time because you can make it back now. You've just gained back all of your time. Like that's the most valuable resource that you possess. Right. And when you can time collapse, you can have somebody else figure out those problems for you. It just makes your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
And you're going to hit the bullseye with it. And if you don't hit the bullseye, you have somebody else helping you figure out and solve that problem for you.
And somebody else to blame too.
And somebody else to blame, man.
You're like, God damn it, why didn't I hit that? Yeah. So in the fitness market, do you think it's saturated, or would you recommend people kind of get into that, or would you if somebody was trying to get into the fitness market?
I think anybody that says a market's saturated just sucks at what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a pretty intense approach, but like if you specialize, like there's no shortage of people. Grant Cardone says this all the time where he's like, there's no shortage of money, just shortage of people going after it, right? Yeah. Like you need to understand this very simple point, right? You can know as much about fitness as you want. It's not going to make you more money.
Yeah.
Right? You'll be capped to a certain point. Like you need to have the basic skills, obviously, to get people results and stuff like that. I'm not disregarding that, but you need to learn the business of fitness, right? So if you don't understand that business of fitness, which is how do you charge and how do you actually create a business from your services? How do you make money from what you do, right? Like how do you make a living? Yeah. Do you want to make 40 grand a year? How the fuck do you live on that? You know what I mean? Like, especially in a place like this, like you can't, right? And that's just the unfortunate truth. And, when I was working at some other commercial gyms, I would try to teach some of the other like trainers sales and stuff. But I mean, like it's very clear that some people, they think that the more certifications or something they get, that the better it's going to make them. And I think those people, they'll say the industry's saturated. Oh, I can't get any clients. Well, of course you can't. You don't understand business.
Yeah. Or then we talked about this the first time I ever tried to get a coach from. He had all the accolades. He had all the certificates. And he's like, yeah, I'm going after like 5 more. And I'm like, you don't know how to talk to me. Yeah. And, so like, that's what's it's interesting to see is what's more important. These people also, if you notice too, they kind of become resentful of people like, people that don't have all the accolades and all the certificates.
Yeah, like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about, but that person has all the
All right,
clients.
nerd, whatever you say. Keep reading your books.
Yeah. Is that what you say?
I was the nerd at one point, so I mean, I could say that. So yes, yeah. I do. I try to tell people all the time, like, look, if you want to make more money from this industry, like, you need to first of all learn how to communicate, right?
Yeah.
If you're just standing there looking like a putz when your client's just looking off into space because you're not talking to them, and then you're just awkwardly both standing there between your sets or something, like, dude. Yeah. What are you doing, man? You have the opportunity. You've been given the opportunity to have such an impact on someone's life. Like, you're going to have an intimate conversation with someone who can afford to pay for your services, which means, and this is not it is a necessity. I can't really say it's not, but it's not really a necessity for people, which means they have extra money to spare, which means they're doing something in their life right. So you can learn something from them. And, like, you can also have a positive impact on their life. So if you waste that time, right? I mean, that's the stupidest thing you could do.
Yeah.
Like,
and especially if you're working with, like, good clients, you're talking to people who are smart. You know what I mean? Smarter in some cases, smarter than you, because they're like, if you're trying to grow your business and whatever it is, this person, especially with your clients, they know, or they're actively in business.
Exactly.
So, and then you can also connect them with some of your other clients,
yes,
which you do.
I love doing that, man.
Yeah.
And I don't look. And it's funny you say that. I think fitness is literally the best place to network, because everybody that's an entrepreneur that sees self-development and personal development, which the successful ones are, right, as a priority, right, they're going to take care of their health. So they're going to go to a fitness facility, right? They're going to work with a coach, right? When you find the right coach and you get the right people, those people can introduce you to other people, other services. And, like me introducing you today to the guy I introduced you to, I mean, it's an opportunity for you guys to expand business for both of you.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, that can make you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Like, and that's just, was a small connection that took place and basically was free. Yeah. So fitness, I think, is the best place to network. And
you're surrounded by some of the best people too, because the better people, especially at the higher end
better
ones.
People.
Yeah. Well, the better, that's probably a bad way to put it, but people that have money and that are trying to be better, you're surrounded by them, because those are the people that are at these places.
Yes.
That's why the higher end places are better. It's almost better to pay in to get into those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you're around
proximity.
Better quality of people, and then that kind of rubs off on you. That's been a big thing for me moving down here. I always tell a story a lot about how when I first moved down here, I couldn't even imagine spending $1,000 for rent. I was like, dude, I could never afford that. That's fucking crazy. That was like pipe dream, And now then you move down here and you're like, that's an everyday, everybody does that. So okay, if everybody else can do it, why can't I? And same with driving the nice cars. You see everybody driving a nice car. You're like, if you're into cars, okay, why can't you? Because you're around that. And
it's pressure. Yeah, it's like you need to conform to your environment, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to get pushed out of it. That's what That's why the conversation when people talk about gentrification, like when they blow up an area and they make it way too expensive for people to live in it, right?
Yeah.
It's always a good thing long term, right? Because what it does is it draws a lot of natural resources and money to that area, right? And it really helps out. I mean, yeah, it sucks that some people can't live there, but you going to cater to every population always? Yeah. Like, it's just that's a utopia. It's impossible. It doesn't exist, right? So I mean,
except for where? Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit. Well, Dan Gilbert's buying up everything. He owns the Cavaliers.
Oh, really?
And yeah, dude. It's funny. I used to train the president of one of his companies, and crazy stories. Crazy stories. That guy he brought all these people in from. He was the commercial agent for Detroit. I want you to think about. He's also the president of Quicken Loans at one point, right? And this dude told me stories about how, like, he would go to, like, the Under Armour CEO and, like, they'd go to this big facility. He's trying to get them to put Under Armour in Detroit or something. And he says they got this, like, field of, like, 40 yards of monkey bars. Like, 40 yards. Like, that's a long monkey bar, So he's like, dude, if you can go across this whole thing, he goes, I'll go into Detroit. Guy jumps up there, man. And this guy was built. Like, he worked out, like, a lot. Yeah. He goes up there, and he trash and he rips his $15,000 suit. Rips it right down the sides. And I'm like, man. But, I mean, it's just interesting getting to meet those people because they connect you to such, like, interesting ideas. And he was the first guy who actually taught me about profit and loss. Like, he's like, you know what profit and loss? I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And like, this is a long time. It was like 7-8 years ago. Yeah. He's like, profit and loss means like you need to learn about it if you care about business, right? Like if you're really trying to grow in the future. And so like being around these people, they turn your minds onto things. It's like some days I feel like I have a fucking MBA from like just working with all these people because they're like, don't do this, try this, do that. And obviously people have their own different approaches, but it's just the opportunity for you to have access to that information that you wouldn't have otherwise looked up yourself,
Yeah, and that like that's what the higher price point is almost better to,
Always.
if you're charging a higher price point, you're getting better people, better clients, and if you've probably noticed too, the more that somebody pays with you, the more likely they are to be a good client.
Oh yeah, okay, and vice versa.
Yeah,
the,
and the less
people
they
who
pay,
bitch the most,
Yeah.
pay the least.
Yeah, sometimes because there's like we talk about the last experience I had with a trying to hire a coach. Right, I wouldn't say a ton, but for me at the time it was like this is enough, right? And for the services they were selling, I thought like this is going to be way too much, So I bitched a lot too, because I wasn't getting what I thought I was promised, But then when I came and hired an actual coach, it was a little bit more upfront, but then the experience has been 1,000 times better. The experience of hiring a coach has been.
Well, you get what you pay for, right? It's like, I mean, when you go to shop for cars, you find like the rinky-dink worst one you could find, and you're like, oh, you know what? The one that's broken down and only cost me $500. That's my car right there. It's cheap. It gets me from A to B, right?
Yeah.
It's like the people that look for bargains and everything they do, especially services. Like services are where you don't want to bargain because you're paying for someone's experience, right? A product, people could overcharge you for it. Hey, go fuck yourself. Right?
Yeah.
You're charging me 4 times the amount
That's
of this.
what I got before in the last coaching was a product.
Yes.
And I thought I was getting coaching. But that like how you said that does make sense because, you don't want to. I mean, maybe you can try to get a bargain, if somebody's feeling good or whatever, they want to give you a bargain on their services. But then they're also going to feel like, oh, this guy's only paying this much, I'm only going to give him this much, But a product, you can 100% be overcharged for a product. In fact, I always make sure I try not to be overcharged for products, but services from people, I'm willing to pay whatever they know because I don't want to put in the time and the effort to know that.
Oh, 100%. Like I will part with money way easier than I will part with my time.
Yeah.
I'll be like, dude, you can do that for me?
Yeah.
Like I was getting some shirts done. The guy's, like, oh, it's this amount of money. I was like, dude, I'll pay double that. I'm like, right now, let's go. Like, I mean, it's just, if it saves me the time of having to learn how to do a new skill.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every time.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Let's get back into the gym. Why do most people not get results when they're going to the gym? Because most people you see at the gym, right? They go to the gym for 4 or 5 years and they look the exact same for 2 of those years or 3 of those years. Why do most people not get results in the gym?
That's a great question. And I don't think there's a really easy answer to that because, I mean, there could be so many variables. But I think the first thing is they change shit too often. Right. And I want you to think very basically, if like in science, if you're doing an experiment, right?
Yeah.
If you keep changing things, you can never get a definitive result because you don't know what worked from what didn't. Right. And the problem is they change stuff too often or they make things way too complicated to replicate. Right. I mean, this is why I like working with entrepreneurs because this applies to business. Right. You want to make a business, right? What would you tell somebody when they're first starting off that they should make the most intricate business plan they possibly can to a point where it's impossible to execute on it, right? Or do you want to start simple? Go in there and start doing stuff. I don't know. Like you got to figure it out through time.
Yeah, focus on the first thing of just making money because if you don't have cash flow coming in, you're fucked. This is an interesting thing too because most people when they go into businesses, they go do all the stuff that don't fucking matter. Like Bedros talks about it. He says you're focusing on the things that the whisper and not the things that shout. And the things that shout are who's paying me?
Yeah.
Most people focus on like, oh, I'm starting my little business, so let me go get some cards, like print out some business cards. It's little stupid things like that, but you got to focus on the things that actually shout.
Yes.
The big things. But that, I mean, most like even me personally, like I was working out, and I didn't get like, I felt like I actually got fatter.
Yeah.
And that was partly because of the food I was eating.
Well, it's many factors, right? I mean, we'll just put it down to this. I mean, we'll just say ignorance. Like ignorance of not really knowing what to do. I mean, because there's a difference between exercise, working out, and training. Right? Exercise is the stuff the elderly women do with the little dumbbells in the mall or something. You got working out like the bros. Go work out. And then you got training, which is a specific function for training. Like there's a specific result that you're trying to shoot for, right? Like football players don't train the same way as soccer players do because they have 2 different sports, 2 different outcomes. Yeah. If you want to change the way that you look, well, then you need to learn to train the right way for changing the way that you look, and that's the isolation training that we do, right?
Yeah.
But you also need to learn how to pair the other elements in with that, which is the nutrition, which is the lifestyle, which is, do you have somebody that's able to correct you and change the things that you do along the way? Because you're not going to do them perfectly for a very long time, So I think when you consider all those factors, there could be many reasons why people don't get results. But, I think the biggest thing is going to be consistency in the right direction, and just like being patient.
Mm-hmm. What would you say, like 2 or 3 things that could help somebody right now get results in the next 3 months?
Keep things simple as hell. Like when you go, like people change things way too much. Like I'll give you an example. Say you want to grow your chest, right? You want to get a bigger chest. Let's get the big old broad one, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to get a bigger chest, some people go in there and say, okay, I'm going to do a dumbbell flat bench. I'm going to do barbell flat bench. I'm going to do dumbbell incline. I'm going to do incline barbell. I'm going to do cable flies. I'm going to do hex presses. I'm going to do push-ups. I'm going to do dips. Like they just do way too much. Why don't you pick 2 to 3 exercises? And after you pick those 2 to 3 exercises, why don't you do them for like 5 to 6 sets? Yeah. Because if you can't master one movement, you can't go on to the next one. Yeah. Right? You're never going to build compound consistency over time. Like you're never going to get results because you can't even feel what you're doing, right? So I think the biggest point I'm trying to make is keep things simple, but like you also want to focus on being able to feel what you're doing, right? Can you feel it? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yeah, and we feel it every day.
Yeah.
And I always talk about this, but the fun thing about this is we're doing such light weights, but I feel it like crazy. Like my whole chest feels when we're
like it's ripping.
My whole chest, and when we're doing arms, my whole arm feels, like it's ripping. So and we're doing like very simple, rudimentary exercises. Mm-hmm. And, we have all these machines in the gym, and we use like 5 of them.
Yeah, it's not what you do; it's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that. It's not what you do. It is how you do it. So, what's the future? What's the future in fitness? How do you think AI is going to affect that? And where do you think the industry's going?
That's fun. You know what's crazy is like AI is going to mess with a lot of industries. I don't think it's going to change fitness that much. No. I think there's a human element that will always exist because people need accountability. What, do you be accountable to a robot saying, do that? Do that. It's just not going to happen. Like otherwise people would be accountable to the robots in their pockets, like their phones, right? Like they could look up a program and just do that, right? But I think there's a human element to the coaching that I don't think will ever go away. And since I think fitness is such a young industry still, I think it has a lot of time to evolve without AI, I think, interrupting it too much. Because when people still need a place to work out, right? What are you going to hit a machine and it's going to work out for you?
Yeah.
I just don't think it's not going to be the same as like some other industries. I think fitness has a very long life still. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's really going to be affected too much by AI. But as for the future of it, who knows, man? Who knows? Because it's such a young industry.
I was watching a podcast with the guy who started Lululemon, and he was saying that in the future, he thinks everyone's going to be in incredible shape because they're going to be wearing smart clothes. And the clothes are going to tell you, like, hey, don't eat this or eat this. This is what your body needs. Or work out these muscles because it's how much you need to, And then you kind of like set your clothes like whatever goals you want, and your clothes will be kind of like smart because they're the closest thing to you. They're going to know what your body's like, how it's reacting, how it's regulating. And yeah, it's super interesting.
I don't think any computer exists on the planet today, though, that's smarter than the human body. I just think the stuff your body has superpowers. If I were to cut your skin right now, your skin heals and regenerates by itself.
Yeah. Well, and depending on how healthy you are, how fast, too.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. If I unplug this computer right here, right, it ain't restoring power to itself.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, there's some things that technology can't do that the human body, it just has inconceivable benefits with. So I think there are things that, you can't really predict.
Yeah, and I think it'll affect it a little bit, just like any industry. It'll affect, like, or I hope it does. I would wear the shit out of some clothes that tell me, hey, eat this. It's almost like you'd have a coach right on your body. It would be kind of cool to see that and wear that. So you don't think we're gonna have like these the Tesla robots are not gonna come in and do all of my heavy lifting for me?
Yeah, people are just gonna sit there like this, and their body's gonna get moved.
Sedate it, yeah. Lift me, yeah. That's awesome, man. So what will the future look like with? Do you think there's going to be ever these lockdowns anymore, and how that's going to affect the industry?
I think it's funny. Fitness is one of those things that it did affect the in-person side of things, but it exploded the online marketplace. You've seen more people getting into online fitness coaching, like in that era. Because I was in it. Like, I know. Like, I had friends that made ridiculous money. I had friends that were making $100,000 a month on online coaching, right? I mean, and they were from sitting from their home. So we're talking, you know what their profit margins are? 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what,
Yeah.
you know, so, I mean, there's a lot of money and utility to be made to fitness because people are uncertain with their health and they always will be. They just don't care to learn about it, right? So even if things happen, the fitness industry will pivot, you know, it always will because it has to do mainly with humans.
I think that's the stupidest fucking thing they could have done is shut down the fitness, shut down gyms.
Oh, that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Make you weak, docile, and compliant.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, there is something to be said in that because I could never, I mean, when COVID happened, when there was those shutdowns, that's when I was like, okay, I have all this time, so I'm going to get in shape. And that's when the first time I got in really good shape. And that's when I realized, okay, you can get in shape, but you also feel like shit. So then how do I get in shape? And because after I got in really good shape, but then I didn't feel good. I was super fucking hungry because I was counting every calorie and making sure like
damaging your metabolism.
Yeah, so I was super fucking hungry. I looked good, but I didn't feel good. So literally 3 months after, after I kind of got off that program, I gained all the weight back, and gained more of the weight back, and took twice as long. It almost ruined me because then I saw what I could become, and then I gained everything back. So then
it's unsustainable. Yeah, this is what people do wrong all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's the big benefit of having a coach too is okay, you can tell the coach, hey, I'm feeling like this, like he's like, okay, do this and this.
Well, you can't be on all the time. You can't be 100% all the time, which is where a coach comes in and says, hey, listen, I know you're feeling like shit today, but we're gonna still do this.
Yeah, man. Well, awesome, man. I think we kind of got to the end of it. Do you have any last things you want to talk about and kind of want to dive in, or any projects you're working on?
Yeah, dude, you want to come in tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Let's get it, baby.
And where can people go to find you and to find you more about your coaching program and that?
That's very interesting. So right now I'm actually currently working at a place called Self-Made in Scottsdale, right? It's a private training facility. It's basically, the trainers and the coaches, they just go there and they bring their own clients, right? So it's not accessible to the public. Like, you need to be able to work with somebody. And, if you're looking to check something out like that, and if you're looking to try to get in a free session or something like that, I don't do free sessions. Too bad. No, but I mean, they could contact me on Instagram and, we could chat, but, no promises there.
What's your Instagram?
It's just my first and last name it's my first and last name. I almost said my email, right? Can't be giving you that.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
So awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming out, and it was good to meet you.